y'all? Zach here for the Yak Legion Podcast. And I have Mike Mckinstry here, the Bassquatch Hunter. How's it going, man?
It's going good, man. It's going great. Nice and hot here in Michigan.
Oh, definitely. So I've been following you for a while, social media, YouTube. I know you got a TV channel. So for everybody that really don't know who you are, I'm sure a lot of people do, but do you care to introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah. Well, my name is Mike Mckinstry. I have a brand called Bassquatch Hunter TV, and I have a YouTube channel, Instagram page, Facebook page, all the fun socials. And then I do a weekly podcast called Bassquatch Hunter TV Live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. And then I have the TV show as of this year on Waypoint TV that airs every couple of weeks. They have a new episode air next year, hoping to double that. But yeah, I travel the country with kayaks and try to find some fun adventures and find some cool things along the way and find the best way I can to share it with everybody else, which is pretty much videos. So, and a lot of posting.
Oh, wow. That's awesome, man. I know we're all about the kayak fishing here at Yak Legion. So what got you into kayak fishing?
So I was in the bass boat world for a long time, and I just didn't feel like it was I didn't feel like it was family. Like I didn't feel like I had as much of a belonging, I guess, in the bass boat world. It was more competing to see who had a nicer boat is pretty much what I always ran into. And there was a spot on the lake. So where I live in Michigan, you can't be anywhere in Michigan, you can't be more than 20 minutes away from water. So where I'm at right now, I have about 25 lakes within 10 minutes of my house. And
Wow.
There's so many lakes around here that have like little hidden spots that you can't get to in a boat. And there's one lake in particular that I would do a tournament on all the time in my bass boat. And I think I rebuilt my lower unit, I think 3 times in the last season I had my boat about 5 years ago. And I had about a little over $5,000 into my boat motor alone that year. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to find a kayak that I can take fishing, that I don't have to worry about props or motors. And I'm going to get back in that spot and I'm going to catch the biggest fish, I promise. And then I did. I bought a kayak and went out to my spot, and I was so happy to be there. I caught my personal best at the time, and I sold the bass boat 2 weeks later.
Oh, wow. What was your first kayak?
I had a feel free. Well, my first kayak ever was a Wilderness Riot from like 2002. But if you sneeze too hard, you'd flip over. It wasn't really made for fishing. It was, more of a sit in and don't move kind of kayak. Mm-hmm. And my first real kayak, as I call it, was a Feel Free 11.5, nice. The lure series. I actually went to go buy another kayak. I had someone in my ear the whole time saying, you got to buy this brand, you got to buy this brand. And that's all I knew. So I went to a store to go look at it, and I happened to be in Ohio. I drove down to Ohio, and they had a Feel Free there. I've never heard of the brand. I didn't know anything about them. I did no research, and I asked them about it. It was cheaper than the kayak I was looking at. And I sat in it for about 5 minutes, and I was sold. I was like, this feels like a bass boat. The seat's up really high. The deck is solid. It just fit my needs and my style at the time, and it fit my budget a lot better. And I got it. And then, since then, I've tried every kayak and every brand out there possible, and still the Feel Frees just kind of fit what I do. They just, every kayak's got a great kayak. I mean, every brand's got a great kayak for someone, but the Feel Frees just kind of fit what I do really well. So It's been pretty good.
So you like the paddle kayaks over the pedal kayaks? Have you tried any of the pedal ones?
Both. So my main Feel Free is the pedal drive.
Okay.
I use the Dorado right now mostly. Before that, I used the lure with the pedals. Feel Free came out with an overdrive that could retrofit into the older kayaks last year. So I've had the pedal drive for about almost 2 years now. I use both though. There's a time and place for both. Like if I'm doing like a big offshore trip, or if I'm going to the flats, or if I'm doing a really big body of water even, then or a tournament, I definitely use my pedal drive. It's just more efficient. You have more time with the rod in your hands instead of a paddle. But when I'm going out for relaxing and just to hang out with friends, and I'm not really fishing that much, or I'm going down a river, then I don't even bring the pedal drive. I take it out and just bring a paddle. There's still something like really peaceful about being able to paddle a kayak,
Oh, definitely. And those pedal drives, they don't work so well in those shallow rivers.
No, not at all.
We have some shallow rivers up here in Little Miami, and you go down a rapid and tear a pedal drive all to hell,
Oh, yeah. Well, it's how it is in Michigan. All the water is so different. There's so much water to choose from that you never know what you're going to run into. And you could run into a spot where you have to lift your kayak up and drag it over some logs, and your pedal drive is not going to do you any favors, and waters like that. So.
Oh, wow. So you mentioned you caught your personal best on the kayak. How big was that?
Yeah, well, at the time, it was my personal best. It's not my personal best now. At the time, it was a 19.5-inch bass, which I never really measured fish back then. I went by weight because I was in bass boat, so I never really measured the length that much. But this one was just under 5 pounds. It was a really, really fat 19.5-inch largemouth bass, and it probably sat back in that little stumpy area feeding all the time because nobody would catch it. Nobody would go back there with the boat, so kayaking wasn't really a big thing at the time in my area, so nobody really went back there. So I got really lucky and caught a really good fish. But since then, my personal best is a 22.5-inch largemouth that hovered right around 7 pounds, and that's still my personal best. And it's still a county record in my county, and it's an incredible fish.
Wow. That's incredible, man. So, what did you catch your first personal best on?
First personal best one was on. Uh, what's funny is it was either a chatterbait or a squarebill because I remember bouncing it off the rocks or off the stumps. My new personal best, the one that's still current, which is 2 years old, still my personal best, was caught on a chatterbait.
Oh, I love them chatterbaits, man. I got a buddy up here. He tears up the tournaments with the chatterbait.
Oh yeah, it's universal, man. You can throw a chatterbait in any type of water, any part of the water column. If you're fishing water, or if you're fishing bass on the bottom of a lake, you can throw the chatterbait down like a jig and bounce off the bottom. If you're fishing in a lower part of the water column, you can retrieve it really slow and let it stay really low. If you're trying to burn it on top of weeds, you can use like the original chatterbait, the 1/4 ounce chatterbait, and just rip it on top of the water, and it'll stay right below the surface like a buzzbait. Chatterbaits are incredibly universal, incredibly universal.
Wow, that's awesome. Is that one of your favorite lures you use? Do you use it often?
Yeah, it's my second favorite next to the other Z-Man bait actually too, which is the I do a lot of finesse fishing, so I like using Ned rig a lot. So
Oh yeah.
I'll use a Ned rig 90% of the time when I'm fishing. I can catch 11 species on a lake that's right behind my house, and I can catch all of them on a Ned rig.
Ned rig's great, man. I started using it last year, and it's increased my catch, and it saved me in tournaments. I remember a tournament last year, man. I fished all day, and it was around noon, and I couldn't catch a thing. I didn't have any fish on the scoreboard, and I threw that Ned rig on. I said, I'm just going to finesse fish the rest of the day with the Ned rig, and
Yeah.
I ended up pulling out 3 scoreable fish by the end of the day by 3 o'clock with the Ned rig. So it saved me on several occasions. What's your favorite color on the Ned?
It all depends. So they came out with 17 new colors.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like some of the new colors a lot. Like right now I'm using Perfect Perch. Uh, my overall go-to has been the Copper Truce, which is like half green pumpkin and half chartreuse.
Okay.
I've been using that one over a year, but the new color Perfect Perch is amazing. At ICAST, they released more new colors, and I've been using some of their new colors already. They have one called Bubble Gut that's like really dark, almost a black with like a hot pink. That one's a really good color. I've been using that one a lot lately. And then they have Twilight, which is purple and pink. That's been pretty good lately too. I like trying all the different colors because in my mind, there's only 3 colors of fishing baits. There's light, dark, and bright. And other than that, I don't feel like fish see the different shades. So if you're going like a light blue versus a lighter blue, you're still in the same category of colors. So I always say that if dark is working, any shade of dark will work. So if pink is working, purple and pink is going to work too. So is a light blue. So is a light green. Most colors are in the same category. So like right now, I've been using a lot of. It's been super sunny out lately. It's been in the high 90s, low hundreds. Crazy humidity, almost like Florida. I just got back from Florida, and it feels the same here as it did there. It's pretty humid and crazy here, so I've been throwing a lot of brighter colors and a lot more natural presentation. And that Perfect Perch color has been doing great. The bubblegum color has been doing great. The new color Gobi Bryant, which I thought was pretty cool. That one's doing really good too. So yeah, I usually mix it up, but it depends on what the sky looks like and what the water clarity looks like.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, they have some crazy names for the Z-Man.
Yeah, the Gobi Bryant's pretty creative. That's one of the new ones. I laughed pretty hard when that one came out. I was like, that's pretty good.
That's awesome. So, like, say it's an overcast day, and you got a little bit of mud in the water. It's a little dark. What color would you use?
Yep, I throw dark colors. So dark skies, dark colors. So that's when the PB&J comes in, the purple and brown. The yoga pants, which is the new one they came out with earlier this year. That's all black.
I'll use that.
Yeah, the yoga pants is a great color for that. I'll even throw like the dark green pumpkins, and I usually throw dark colors for dark skies and light colors with light skies for the most part. Obviously, the water conditions will change that, or species will change that. But for the most part, if you follow that, as far as the color scale goes, like anything bright or light is good in a sunny sky, and anything dark or like gold, for example, shines as black in the water. So gold is brown and chrome is black, actually. So you can use some shiny colors for dark colors too.
Wow, what all species have you caught with the Ned rig?
Oh, geez, a lot, man. So I take the Ned rig with me when I travel, and people laugh at me. Like when I go to Texas or I'll do offshore fishing, I'll throw a Ned rig, and people are like, "You're not going to bring your Yankee baits down here," and I'm like, "No, trust me, I'll catch anything on a Ned rig." And I've caught trout, I've caught saltwater fish with Ned rigs, just to prove a point.
Wow.
It's been one of the most successful baits I've used. I've caught carp, pike, every panfish, bluegill, sunfish, crappie, rock bass, largemouth, smallmouth, walleye, lake trout, pretty much everything.
Holy moly! I've only ever caught bass with them.
Oh, dude, if you throw it, like I said, the lake behind my house has about 11 species in it, so everything in there will bite a Ned rig. I mean, it's amazing. I've caught fish on Ned rigs that are almost the same size as my Ned rig. You know, it's amazing what the thing will catch.
So how do you work your Ned rigs?
Again, it all depends on the water type I'm fishing, and the speed of the current or the wind and everything like that. But for the most part, I do what's called a rainbow retrieve, or that's what I call it at least. But if you think of it visually, that makes sense. Where you throw your bait as far as you're going to cast it to wherever your casting point is going to be, then you pop it up in the air and let it fall back down, and you retrieve it back to your boat that way. And then you reel in the slack each time. So that way you're keeping the line tension still, so you can feel every little peck at the bait. But you pull it up and let it pop. As you pull it towards you, let it fall back down. Pull it up, let it pop up, let it fall back down. Usually they hit it on the fall down because I use a 15th ounce Ned Locks head on it, so it just kind of flutters on the way down. So usually my strikes come on the way down, so I like keeping that big arc.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, that's about the same way I work mine, just up and down, reeling in that slack. Yeah, they're great bait, man. So let's get into some bass fishing talk, man. Let's talk about pre-spawn, man. Let's break down the year here. When you're getting into pre-spawn, what areas and structures do you look for, and what are your favorite types of baits to use in that situation?
So when I'm doing pre-spawn, so the biggest thing that people forget, well, it's different too, because like down in Florida, for example, you don't have a freeze over like we have in Michigan. So we have a freeze over where everything's frozen, sometimes frozen solid. So it changes the way we fish in the northern part of the country too. But I guess my general rule of pre-spawn, no matter where I'm at during that time of the season, you got to remember what the fish are doing. I mean, they're getting ready to come up to the shallows. The water temps are finally climbing. Usually in Michigan here, the water temps will be about 55 to 60, right before that time, like 55-ish around there. So you look for the spot where the water is starting to heat up and the water is still cold. Usually the fish stay at the transitional period in the water column. So either where there's a thermocline or if there is not a thermocline, and then you look for that spot where the sun is penetrating down. So if the sun's going down 3 foot, then the water is going to be warmer on the top 3 feet because the sun's heating the water up. So below that mark is going to be colder water. I mean, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So usually the fish will stage up right where that water change is, the temperature change, because they're trying to feed up and they're trying to scout out where their beds are going to go. They're trying to scout out where it's going to be safe for them. They're mating still. I mean, there's a whole like theory, I guess, behind the staging and getting ready to spawn. And then when it goes into spawn, that's when obviously they're going to be up shallower. You're going to find them on beds. You're going to find them being a little bit more aggressive, more protective. So it changes your whole fishing tactic going into the spawn process. So I personally like pre-spawn and post-spawn. It's my favorite time of the season. I'm not really a big fan of spawning season because I don't like fishing beds. So, and it's hard to get the fish that aren't on beds during spawning because they're so aggressive on their beds. If you throw anything near a bed, they're gonna go nuts. So during spawn, it's a little bit slower in my opinion, but because I don't like fishing beds. But pre-spawn and post-spawn, man, hot spot. Usually around here, it's about 12 foot of water, 10 to 12 foot of water, and it's the best time. They're so aggressive. They're fattened up. They're feeding like crazy. You can get a fish that weighs 5 pounds in one time of the year, it weighs 6 pounds right at post spawn. So it's amazing when they start stacking up like that.
Oh, definitely. What tactics do you use? Well, you said you didn't like to fish during the spawn.
Yeah, I'm not a bed. Well, I fish during the spawn, but I just don't fish beds. So I still fish deeper, and I fish for like they're not going to be as fat, obviously, but I'm not going for the pregnant fish. I want them to be able to spawn. I want them to be able to breed without it being bothered. So I kind of leave the bed fish alone. But during well, like I said, they're usually around 12 foot is my happy spot. Usually 10 to 12 foot for pre and post. And it depends where I'm at again. If there's ledges, if I'm like in Tennessee fishing the Kentucky Lake or Tennessee River somewhere, it's going to be a ledge at a 12-foot mark instead of a like slow gradual drop off like there is up here. Mm-hmm. So I'll use crankbaits. I'll use 12-foot crankbaits. I'll use Ned rigs a lot too because Ned rigs are so universal. Chatterbaits are incredibly universal too. That way I can hit that little happy spot of 10 to 12 foot because you want to use a bait that you can control at a certain depth. So using a crankbait that is designed to go 12 foot, like a DT12, that's going to pretty much guarantee you'll be right around that happy spot for as long as you can. And a Ned rig or shaky head, obviously, if you're throwing the bottom at 12 foot, you're going to hit the 12 foot mark. So I like using baits that I can just stay in the strike zone as long as possible. So anything that will stay down around the 10 to 12 foot mark is what I'm going to be throwing the most.
Oh, okay. That's good info, man. So what do you do when it gets heated up? Like right now, man, it's where you got the dog days of summer and it's hot and the water's hot and it's sunny. I know sometimes it's hard to get a bite. What are some of your strategies for this situation?
Yeah, it's a lot tougher, man. Especially like right now in Michigan, we're doing like a real feel of 100 degrees almost every day lately, and it's not very normal for Michigan. So the fish are acting kind of weird. And I was just telling my buddy this the other day, we're out in the water. I'm like, man, these fish are so confused right now. Like they think they're in Florida. It's so humid when they come out of the water. It feels like they're in the water still because it's so humid out. But yeah, lately I've been using some faster moving baits because, anything, it's kind of back in science class, like molecular structure and science classes. When something heats up, it moves faster. When it's cold, it condenses and moves slower. So when the water levels get pretty high and the water is still this hot, then I throw fast moving baits. I move things quick, more erratic motions. I'll use baits in a different way than they're supposed to be used. Like I'll use a square bill, but I'll use it like a jerk bait. So I keep it around 4 foot and just pop it down around 4 foot just to give it an erratic motion, just trying to get a nice trigger strike out of it. I'll take a chatterbait and I'll use that like a jerk retrieve too, and I'll just get that moving all erratic and vibrating and try to simulate a wounded fish or an easier target just to make it more likely that I'm going to get an aggressive fish that's going to just see it and attack. When the water gets like this, I try different things. That's it. I try using baits a different way. People get stuck in the same routine of using the same bait the same way all the time, but there's different ways to use every bait, and every day someone comes up with a new way, and it's always fun to learn new ways to do it. So when the water's like this, that's what I resort to. I just do fast moving baits, and I move baits differently than normal and just see what it does.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever fish at night during the summer?
I do, but not this time of year. It's still 80 degrees at night here, 75 degrees at night. So it's not going to give me a big change besides the moon being out. I like fishing at night in the fall time a lot because that's usually I do a lot better at night in the fall time. Like once that fall time hits, especially in Michigan up here, and the smallmouth get a lot more active again, it's incredible.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I definitely want to hear
here's
about
a word
how
about
you
our
catch
new
fish in the fall,
sponsors.
'cause that's always
Venom
the time I
Lures
struggle.
in Lancaster,
So
Ohio.
figure out
Venom
the bass in the
Lures
fall.
is known for
But
their
before we
great
get into
soft
that, we're going to
plastics
take a
and
quick
terminal
commercial
tackle.
break. I'm going to
They
hear
have
from
been
my
providing
sponsors,
quality products
and we'll
from
be
right
right
here
back.
in Ohio since 1984. Mr. Dustin Carnes is the new owner and inventor of the DK rig. It's a weedless version of the Ned rig that's taken the fishing world by storm. You can check them out at venomlures.com. Our next sponsor is Strictly Sail. Strictly Sail is located on Kenwood Road in Blue Ash, Ohio. They sell Hobies, New Canoe, Feel Free, and Three Waters Johnny Boat. They have been providing high-quality service to fishermen and watercraft enthusiasts since 1978. Reach out to Brian Tacey at 513-984-1907 or check them out at strictlysailinc.com.
All right, we're back. So yeah, we're going to talk about fall fishing, man. That's something I really struggle with, and I don't know. It seems like I fish a lot in the early fall, and then late fall comes around. I start hunting. I run traps, and I do like outdoor stuff like that, like in the woods. But man, maybe you can help me out with the fall fishing, man. What do the bass start to do when you start getting those cooler nights? And the summer is starting to transition into the fall.
So again, these are just my opinions. Like I'm by no means am I like an expert at bass fishing. I still learn from people every day too. But
Mm-hmm.
um, so these aren't like scientific, obviously. But what I usually been doing in the fall is probably my most productive time of fishing too. That's when I get most of my bigger fish. My top 5 personal bests have all been in October. They've all been
Wow.
around the same time. Um, all my fish between 20 and 22 inches have all been. It's always October. Um, and I kind of do the same thing I do in the spring because what happens in the spring is the water goes from cold to warm. In the fall, it goes from warm to cold. So it's kind of the same behavior as far as them trying to migrate to where they find the warm water and the cold water where they meet, because the bait fish are going to be more comfortable in that little area right there too. So where the bait fish are is where the predator fish are going to be. So usually I'll do the same thing, 10 to 12 foot deep. I'll look for that drop off. If the water is 20-foot visibility, crystal clear, then I'll fish in 20 foot of water. I try to find where the sun stops reaching, so
Mm-hmm.
that way the water, or in the fall, it's gonna be warmer, obviously. And as the air temperature cools down in the fall, then the surface temp cools down in the water. So then you get a really cool chance to fish, that 6 to 12 foot, that whole drop off. Like if you're looking at a gradual drop off, the whole 6 foot to 12 foot mark, I always find fish staging up right there. So that's when I throw the chatterbaits again, but I work them slow. I'll throw the square bills again, but I work them slow. I'll throw the netted rig all year long. I'll work it a little bit slower in the fall time. The colder temps will slow the fish down, so I'll start trying to work it to their benefit where they see it as an easy target. So a slow retrieve on everything, no matter what part of the water column. So it's a square bill chatterbait, netted rig, shaky head, but they're all going to be very slow retrieves in the fall.
Okay. Okay. Do you ever fish in the winter?
I fish in the winter a lot. So actually, my first episode of Bassquatch Hunter TV for this season was an ice fishing episode, and I had a lot of feedback on it because I bring my kayaks out on the ice and I drill holes and I fish through the sonar pods in the kayaks, and I have my chairs, my cup holders, my rod holders, like everything's there. So why not?
Yeah.
So I fish in the cold all the way until the lakes freeze, and then I did 2 videos last year while it was snowing outside, and I was fishing for trout in my kayak. Um, so yeah, when it's cold out, it's just everything's opposite. I mean, everything is super slow. If it's ice fishing, obviously it's a different world. You're not even casting anymore. Um, but when it starts snowing out here, but the water's still open and we're in 50-degree, 45-degree water temps, I just move things super, super slow. Things have to sit for a long time to find a fish when the water's that cold. So if you're moving to catch a fish, there's no way the fish are going to move fast when it's almost freezing. So yeah, in the wintertime, it's just the slowest time of the year. I try to travel a lot in the wintertime. I try to go down south as much as possible in the wintertime.
Yeah, I don't blame you there, man. Um, that's awesome. What other species of fish do you catch in the wintertime? Do you focus straightly on bass, or do you kind of try to catch some of the other fish like walleye and muskie and stuff like that? The cold.
I do a lot of walleye and trout in the wintertime.
Mm.
The lake that's right behind me has some really, really good walleye. Um, so in the wintertime, me and a couple of buddies go out there and we'll catch some really good walleye. And then there's a lake about 5 minutes away that's got really good trout. So we'll go out there in the wintertime too. That's when the trout turn on and the walleye turn on. The bass kind of slow down. Once the water temps hit like 40, 45, the bass bite is pretty much almost non-existent. So I switch to walleye and trout and go that route.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Unless I'm down south, obviously. That's why I try to travel. That way I don't have to miss bass the whole winter.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of trout lakes, or at least around my area of Ohio. Now you go north a little bit up towards Lake Erie. There's lake trout and stuff like that. Now I know the DNR they stock rainbow trout out here in the lakes, but that's about as much trout fishing as I've ever done.
Okay.
But so you mentioned you fish kayak tournaments. What got you started doing that, man?
Just the It's actually the first thing I ever did with my kayak. Before I went out the first 2 times by myself, just to feel the kayak and see what it was about. and get used to the way it felt. Then my first thing, like the first event that I did, it wasn't like a group outing. It wasn't anything. It was a tournament in my area. I knew nobody. I walked in there and didn't know one person. And I'm very competitive by nature. So I wanted to see how good I could do because I did pretty good at bass boats. So I went out and I'm trying to remember correctly. I think there was 72 people there. I think it was either, my first or second one was 72 people. And it was hailing sideways. We had whitecap waves. It was like 25-mile-an-hour winds. And that was my first tournament in a kayak. And I ended up flipping over, lost all my gear. And by the end of the tournament, and I knew nobody there. I didn't know one person there. By the end of the tournament, everybody donated stuff to me. I got rods, reels, a battery for my fish finder that I lost, extra tackle, dry clothes. I went back out and I got a top 10 finish in my first tournament. And that's kind of what made me fall in love with the sport too, is I saw the community and the compassion and the fact that people were willing to take care of each other, and like people that I was competing against helped me get back on the water so I could compete against them. And I ended up doing pretty well. So it kind of hooked me on it. And my first 2 years in a kayak, I did 25 tournaments and I had 13 top 10 finishes.
Nice.
And I've always done good in a tournament atmosphere. I've always been really competitive in sports, and I don't do as many tournaments anymore because it's hard to pre-fish and travel and compete in tournaments and try to do my show and all my other stuff at the same time. So I've only done a couple tournaments in the last year or so, but I'm hoping next year I have more time because I really miss tournaments. I like going out and talking to people and having a good time and being in the atmosphere more than anything. I don't really care if I win a tournament or do good in tournament. I just like to watch it all. You know, someone's going to catch their personal best. Somebody's going to take home a big check. Somebody's going to have the time of their life. And it's pretty cool to be able to witness that. So.
Oh, it's great, man. That's what drug me into the kayak community, dude. I love the kayak, the brotherhood in it. You know, we just did a camp out at a Raccoon Creek Outfitters, and it's just the small outfitters. They run a livery down Raccoon Creek here in Ohio. And, man, we all sat around the fire the night before and drank a few beers and just talked fishing and kayak fishing all night, man. And, you know, we were all competing against each other, but people would be willing to help you. You know, I've been to tournaments before, and I've needed help taking my kayak down to the lake, and some random stranger I'm competing against, you know, hey, no problem, man, I'll help you, and help me drag my kayak down there.
Yeah, that's very common too. And even when I'm getting off the water, if someone's launching, we'll start talking. And if I'm like, yeah, dude, the Ned rig was killing it today, and they go, what's a Ned rig? I'll stop, I'll cut my line, give them my bait, and say, here, this is the one I was catching fish with. I usually bring an extra bag of every Z-Man bait with me anyway, and I'll throw them a whole bag and say, here, try them out. Good luck out there. Here's where I was catching them. And a lot of times people are shocked. They're always like, wait a minute, you're telling me where you caught your fish? You're giving me the bait that you used? I'm like, I don't care. Like, I want you to catch fish. And I do the same thing in tournaments. If I'm doing really good on the water and someone comes by me and they're complaining, I'm having the worst day, I'm losing every fish, I'll try to help them out. I'll give them the bait I'm using. And, you know, and people get surprised there too. And they're like, oh, it's a tournament though. I'm like, who cares? Like, who cares? Like, first place is what, like $1,000? Like, we spent more than that in fishing rods. Like, who cares? Like, we're not here to win money. We're here to have fun.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah. Do you fish any KBF events?
Yeah, those are the only ones I usually do is KBF. I host the biggest KBF event in Michigan, the St. Clair Trail event. I host and compete in that one every year. That's pretty much the only tournament that I do is the trail events now. I don't really have time to pre-fish all the other lakes and everything like that. So the KBF events are on the bigger lakes that I'm used to. So it's a lot easier.
Wow, man, that St. Clair was awesome this year. There was a lot of big smallies caught, and
huge.
I know there's a lot of big names, and kayak fishing was up there.
Did you see the episode 3 of my show? The last episode before the one that came out yesterday was the newest episode from Utah. The one before that, episode 3, was the Lake St. Clair KBF Trail event.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that one yet.
Yeah, that one's the weather changed halfway through, and we went from having glass. Everybody was catching the best smallies, and it was musky. And it was crazy. That halfway through the tournament, we ended up having 3-foot white caps, and people were flipping over, and it was like riding a rodeo coming into the shore. Like, check that episode out. It's on Waypoint TV right now. But yeah, the episode 3 is, I mean, St. Clair event was pretty incredible to watch.
That's awesome. Hey, speaking of your TV show, like, what got you started in doing all that?
Well, like I said earlier, I wanted to share my experiences in kayaking. So I started doing YouTube videos because I did a couple years of video production 15 years ago, so I kind of knew how to do it a little bit. I've done music editing for 15 years, so I knew how to edit stuff. So I was like, well, I could probably make a video and show people how cool this is. Because everybody that heard I was in a kayak, they kind of laughed at me. And they're like, dude, it's a kayak. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, these kayaks are big. Like, you can stand up in them. Like, these aren't like normal kayaks. So I started making videos, and it turned into some of the companies that I was using started reaching out to me and saying, hey, man, like, we really like what you're doing. We love how you're showing our product. Like, do you want to keep on doing it? We'll give you a discount. I'm like, sure, I guess. So I started getting discounts on stuff. I'm like, that's cool. Then I started getting paid for it. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm getting paid to just show everybody how much fun this is. Okay, I'll keep on doing that then. So I kept on growing, and then I finally saw the business opportunity there. So I quit my job on my 10-year anniversary at my company. I quit and took this on full time and started making bigger videos and more videos and making my YouTube series as big as possible and trying to get as many people to see it as I could so they could be inspired to go try it themselves. And then somehow I call it magic because I'm not sure what happened, but I had a production company reach out to me last year and said they wanted to make my series into a TV show. So we filmed a pilot episode. We made a media kit, did all the paperwork and everything like that. Then we started shopping around to different networks and getting some good responses. We got some good offers. We got some rejections, a lot more rejections than offers, of course, but all the rejections just made us do better, I guess, but we got a lot of offers too. So then I got to weigh out which options were the best for where I wanted the show to go, and that was Waypoint TV. So we ended up signing a contract with Waypoint TV for this season, and it's an amazing platform because it's all hunting and fishing, so it's all the same demographic. It's not people looking for like camping or house hunting or DIY shows. It's all hunting and fishing. And I get to own all my content. So I get control of what brands I work with. I get control of where I film, what I film. So it turned into it actually turned into a platform where I was like, well, we'll see where this goes. If it doesn't take off in the first season, then I'll go back to the YouTube series. Like, I wasn't doing that bad on YouTube. Like, I'm fine with that. And then my first 3 episodes did about 10 times better than they were supposed to, or than we expected, I guess. The network was so surprised and so shocked, and so was I, that people were responding to my episodes because they're a different kind of format. There's no commercial breaks. They're very cinematic. It's more of like a storyline from beginning to end, so you can kind of immerse yourself into it like a movie and not have any commercial breaks to pull you out of it. And there's no forced advertising or anything like that. So it just became a thing now where it's taken off so much more than I thought. So now it's being taken a lot more seriously. And now we're looking at signing 2-season contracts for next year and the year after. I had a couple other networks reach out to me since then now and trying to get my show, which is surreal. I mean, it's just taken off so fast. It's incredible.
That's amazing, man. So how did you come up with the name Bassquatch Hunter? I think you froze up on me.
Okay. So have you ever seen the show Facts of Fishing with Dave Mercer?
Yeah.
So that was one of my favorite fishing shows. Like, it's besides the Bill Dance show that I watched when I was a kid, Dave Mercer was like my favorite personality to watch. I just loved how outgoing he was. And a lot of my buddies used to compare me to him and Ike and Ellie because my personality was so over the top and I was always so loud all the time. And like, I was just so outgoing with fishing. So I used to watch a lot of his shows, and I used to have like, it wasn't like a nickname. It was like a joke almost, that I would go out with anybody, go out fishing, and they would catch 10 fish right in front of me, and I would get skunked all day. But at the end of the day, I would catch 1 fish, and it was always the biggest fish of the entire day. And people get so mad at me for it. They're like, dude, you caught the biggest fish. I'm like, yeah, but you caught 15 fish. I only caught 1. They're like, yeah, but your 1 was bigger than half of mine. I'm like, well, yeah, but I got the biggest fish of the day. And it kept on happening. Like, no matter what species we were going for, it kept on happening where I wouldn't get the most fish, but I got the biggest fish. So we were watching Facts of Fishing one night, me and a big group of my friends, and Dave Mercer pulled out a fish and he called it a Bassquatch. And for some reason, right when he said it, one of my buddies looks over, he goes, that's the fish you always get. You always find the Bassquatch. It's all you ever get. It's all you do. We're going to start calling you Bassquatch. And I thought it was kind of funny, and I was like, all right, I don't even know what a Bassquatch is supposed to mean. Like, okay. So it just stuck for a while, and everyone started saying it, like, oh, you caught your Bassquatch, you caught your Bassquatch. So then when I was starting my YouTube channel, I was thinking of a brand, and I was like, man, I'm not really sure what to call it. Like, I don't want to call it with my name because I don't want to promote my name. I want to promote the sport of fishing. So I was like, what am I traveling around and I'm hunting for my Bassquatch? And that's kind of where it came from is just Bassquatch Hunter became like the kind of thing. So it just stuck.
Wow, that's awesome. I didn't know if you were like a Sasquatch hunter and a bass fisherman.
I get that a lot. People down south especially are pretty nuts about Sasquatch, and I have people that come by me with, because my truck is wrapped with the big logo and stuff, so people see the Sasquatch in the logo, and they're like, are you looking for Sasquatch? I'm like, nope. And they're like, do you want to? And I'm like, nope, I don't. And
Ever seen one?
I've had people follow me and like go out of their way to ask me that, and I mean, I get the connection, but it's supposed to be like, I always tell people, like, the Bassquatch is like the one elusive fish that you can never get a picture of, just like the Sasquatch. Like, it's that one elusive fish from every body of water, every lake, every city, every state. Doesn't matter what species it is, really. It's just that one elusive fish that you got to catch and get a picture of, like that personal best, or just the monster fish from that lake. Trying to find the biggest one in every body of water, kind of thing. So, in my Utah episode, the biggest fish of the trip was, I think it was a 19-inch bass, which is pretty big for Utah. And I caught that one the last day of filming, probably my third to last cast. Right, the sun was going down. I was supposed to go in, and I was like, hold on, one more cast, like we all do. And then caught like a 19-inch bass. I was like, well, there's my Utah Bassquatch. It's the biggest fish of the trip. Probably one of the biggest ones in that lake. That lake does not hold any big fish, and it kind of stuck. It's just how it worked, and I don't mind doing it. I don't mind catching big fish. It doesn't always happen, but when it happens, it's pretty nice.
That's awesome, man. That's a cool story. So on my podcast, I kind of do a little game where I play with everybody. It's called Fishing Scenario. It's a fishing scenario game, and I'll give you three scenarios. Usually the third one's a little goofy, and I'll give you three scenarios. You got to kind of explain how you would go about dissecting that body of water and fishing it. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. So scenario number one. Let's see. It's late March and the ice is just coming off the water. The water's around 40 degrees. Say it's a lake you've never been to before, with a maximum depth about 30 to 40 feet, but most of the lake's pretty shallow. How would you go about fishing that?
And what was the water temp? 40?
In the 40s, yeah. The ice is coming off the water, so it's starting to warm up a little bit, but it's still pretty cold.
So I would fish that very similar to, like I said earlier, with the wintertime fishing. The surface is going to be warmer than the bottom. So I'm going to, but still 40 degrees. I'm still going to fish deep. I'd probably fish at like the 20-foot mark to start. That's where I would first dissect the lake. Right in the middle. If it's about 35 to 40 feet, I would fish about 15, 20 foot. Hit that middle spot and find every spot on that lake that has that depth, and then try to find structure at that depth. So if I scan the lake and find with my fish finder and I go around that depth, if it's a circle, then I'll go around the whole circle at the mark, and I'll look for any kind of structure or any kind of drop, a hole, a pile of rocks, any kind of structure at that depth, and then I'll target that structure like crazy until I find some fish. That'd be my first move.
Nice, man. Awesome. So scenario number two, say you're at a large lake. It's the middle of summer. It's been raining for a few weeks, so the water's up about 6 foot and it's muddy. And this is a large lake. You've got places that are probably the deepest is about 60 feet, but you have every range from 1 foot to 60 feet. How would you go about dissecting that in the middle of July, the middle of the heat?
So middle of July, so like where we're at right now, I'd be throwing dark baits because it's a muddy lake. The water level up 6 foot, that's going to create a lot of new structure in the shallows. So things that weren't underwater before are underwater now. So that brings up a lot of new bait. So a lot of the new sediment in the ground, a lot of new worms, crawfish, beetles, bugs, ants, everything are now underwater. So I'm going to fish shallow first. I'm going to go up to the bank and I'm going to find trees that you can see in the water that weren't there before, or branches overhanging that weren't there before, because new structure creates new food, creates new opportunity, and creates new habitat. So new structure is awesome to find. I'll be throwing some dark baits, some moving baits, and throw them all around all the new structure and try to find where the fish are staging up. Most likely, they're all the bait fish will come in to get all the new food, and then the predator fish, the pike, the bass, everything else will come in to follow the bait fish. So maybe even a couple feet off of the bank will probably be more productive.
Okay. Oh, that's good. Good deal, man. You ever been to California?
Not for fishing, no.
So that's my third question. You get invited by your friend in California. You said, hey, man, come down here and fish the California Delta with me. What would you bring on your trip? And how would you go about fishing that for the first time?
Jeez. So freshwater?
Yeah.
Man, so anytime I go to a new state that I've never been to and I don't have anybody there to pre-fish it, usually I try to find local resources. I'll ask some buddies in that area. I'll make a post on Facebook. I'll watch YouTube videos from whatever lake I'm going to go on. I might even hire a guide service if I have enough time to pre-fish before my episode, before I film. If I can't do any of that and I'm just going in blind kind of thing, which I'm actually going to be doing that next week, I usually try to bring so if I can bring 5 rods with me when I'm flying, I will. If I'm driving, I'll bring 15 rods with me. But I bring an assortment of everything. I'll have some finesse bait set up, drop shots. I'll have some crankbaits, some chatterbaits, top water. I'll have 2 or 3 rods set up with every technique I need. That way, because I'm not gonna know what I'm gonna do. And then when I get up my kayak, I'll put 5 rods in the kayak, and I'll put a chatterbait rod, a crankbait rod, a top water rod, a drop shot, a Carolina. Like, I'll mix up every part and I'll just go out and start testing. And I'll start going until I find some fish. I'll start hitting every part of the water column. I'll look at a map on my Google Maps on your phone. Like, people forget Google Maps or Navionics on your phone is so easy to use, and it's so beneficial because you can look at, like, Google Maps actually shows a lot of drop-offs. You can see a lot of, like, sandy points and a lot of islands and a lot of cool contour points on Google Maps. And it shows you where you are in the water automatically. So I'll do that a lot too. I'll go out there and look for any kind of structure, any kind of depth changes that might be abnormal, underwater points, road beds, anything like, especially in a kayak, I'll try to find somewhere in the lake where it looks like boats don't go. Like, if it's like a small canal going somewhere, I might try to find that first. So I'll do that. Then I'll just go dissect it and start throwing. Pretty much, I throw a Ned rig first. Ned rig's my first thing I fire with. And if I can't find a fish with a Ned rig first, then there's no fish in that lake. So
I agree with you, man. If you can't catch a fish with the Ned rig, there ain't no fish there.
No, it can't be because I'm not doing it right. It's got to be because there's no fish in the lake.
That's funny stuff. So one last question for you.
Yeah.
What's your craziest fishing story? Now, this can be a tragedy, or it could be something really funny. What's something that comes to your mind?
There's a lot. I do this 5 to 7 days a week. I'm on the water, filming, fishing, doing something, and I travel a lot. So there's been some. So the first 2 that come to mind, I'm going to tell you both because they're both short. My first redfish, I was on the flats in Texas in Port Aransas. I was down there filming a video with Feel Free Kayaks and a big group of guys. It was such a blast. Never caught a redfish before. I catch the biggest one of the trip from all the guys that live down there and everything like that. We all caught reds and trout all day, but I hook into this monster towards the end of the day. We're fighting wind all day, and I've never fought a redfish, so it was a really hard fight, but I didn't know what to expect. So in my eyes, it was expected. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary. All the guys that I was with fish for redfish all the time. They're like, dude, that's a monster. Like, that's huge. Like, that. They don't fight like really different. And I fought it in for a while. I brought it in. It had a broken tail, but it looked like it had a broken tail from birth. Like, it just grew. So the fish came out, then the tail did one of these like crazy straw things, and then just kept on going to the tail. So it was the craziest looking fish ever, and it fought so different because it had such a weird shape of a tail that it couldn't swim the right way. So when it fought, it was like fighting a sheet of plywood. It was so hard. And when we got him in, it was just I took like 100 pictures of its tail alone. And all the guys there were like, I've never seen a redfish like that. I've never seen a redfish like that. So my first redfish was like a rare, deformed, crazy looking redfish, and it was like 33 inches. And it was delicious. We had tacos that night. It was amazing.
Awesome.
But that one comes to mind first. The other one, man, there's so many other ones that come in. Probably the funniest one is I caught a 12-inch bass, and it's the only time I flipped my kayak. And I caught a 12-inch bass. It was a dink. And I was like, I'm not using my net. I'm going to reach down and grab it because I'm mad at the dink, and I just want to get it off the hook and throw it back in as quick as possible. I had the kayak for like 2 weeks. I didn't realize that you can't lean all the way over in a kayak when the seat's all the way up and you're facing winds on your side and there's waves and hail and everything like that. So I reached over to get the fish, and as soon as I did, my kayak just did a complete 180, and I flipped over. And for some reason, my mentality, I held that darn fish as tight as I could because I don't want to lose. Like, I don't know why, but I'm trying to swim, losing all my gear, and I'm holding that stupid little 12-inch fish. So that's probably one of the funniest ones because I was laughing. It was scary, and I was mad I lost all my gear, but at the end of the day, I was laughing really hard about it because I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't go for my rods. I didn't try to grab my cell phone. I didn't try to grab anything that was important. In my mind, I was like, don't let go of that fish. Like, don't lose that fish. And it was like a 12-inch largemouth bass that wasn't worth anything. But,
that's funny.
Yeah, I won't do that one again.
I hadn't flipped my kayak yet. I did flip it on the river once on a rapid. And I was going sideways, and I just couldn't correct it fast enough, and I hit a rock sideways, and I just fell over in like a foot of water. My poles went over, but I was able to rescue everything. But,
yeah, that's good. I mean, I lost all my stuff when I flipped, but like I said, everybody helped me out in the tournament. Like, everyone was like, "Oh, you flipped, you lost all your stuff, you're freezing. Like, here's some clothes, here's a paddle, here's fishing rods." It was amazing. That's kind of what started everything. Flipping over was kind of what started my career. Wow,
that's awesome. So is there any sponsors or anybody shout outs you want to give before we end this?
Of course, man. I'll do some free shout outs. So again, you guys can check out Bassquatch Hunter TV on Waypoint TV. It's a free app on your smartphone, TV, Roku, every device. There's some really good shows on there too, not just mine, but make sure you check mine out. Go to my YouTube channel, Bassquatch Hunter TV on Instagram, Twitter. Give it a follow, a like, or a comment. And then, of course, the sponsors that really help what I do, they're not just sponsors that pay me. Most people don't even know which brands pay me and don't pay me, and I like it that way because I promote brands that I believe in and brands that I'm a customer of, whether they sponsor me or not. But Feel Free Kayaks, of course, have been with me for 4 years. They're an amazing brand. Some of the best people out there and great kayaks too. They fit everything I do. FX Custom Rods, I've been with them since they first started too. Some of the best fishing rods in the market. They make the lightest fishing rod in the market now too. Z-Man Fishing Products, some of the best, as you know, the most universal baits in the world. The chatterbait and the Ned rig, you can use it anywhere in the country and catch any kind of fish. So Z-Man's been great to me. Yak Gear and Railblazer have been amazing. So if you need accessories for your kayak or you're looking at rod holders and stuff, a lot of companies make them. Yak Gear ones, they fit really well for what I do, and the prices are great. And then last but not least, have you ever heard of Save Your Outdoors?
Yeah.
The retrieval devices, those things have saved so many of my rods and my GoPro more than once. They make the little retrieval device that deploys in the water like a automatic PFD. When it goes under the surface, it pops up. And if you drop your rod in the water or your camera in the water, then they make a camera mount one too. So guys, go check those out too.
Yeah, save your gear, definitely, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, man.
No problem, man. I appreciate being on it, man. It's cool. I like what you do, and I'm going to go back and listen to a bunch of your episodes today.
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate that, man. Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on, Mike, and have a good one.
You too, man. Thanks.